It all comes down to this: a years long journey, a lot of art drawn, a lot of art not drawn, a lot of words said. But this is the number one fight on our list. And it is. I wish we had a better name for it. From Chapter 4, page 21, Abe versus everyone.
Dun dun dun. Goddamn.
Yes, Abe versus everyone. I think everybody knew this fight was going to make it on the list, and so the more we didn't talk about it, the more they probably knew this was going to be our number one pick.
And I don't know why it wouldn't be. It has every character introduced involved up to that point, and it is the most dangerous foe they had faced up to that point.
Abe was basically like the final boss of our first big arc, which is chapters 1 through 4.
Agreed.
And his defeat, spoiler alert, basically ushers in the next chapter.
Yeah, Abe is definitely one of those characters. Once he falls, it feels like we're moving on to a whole next era. And while I think in many ways Chapter 5 kind of serves as the end of the C storyline, this is this definitely feels like we're going on to something very different. There's a lot of little subtle stuff throughout the entirety of this fight. But what really stands out and gives Abe this, there's quite nothing like this where we have, when we say this is everyone versus Abe, we mean this is everyone versus Abe, minus three characters. Everybody does something in this fight.
And who are those three, just so people know?
Kaleo, Sonia, and Liz are sidelined for this fight.
And there's a couple of good reasons for that. One reason is that this very enemy just ate Kalio's arm not that long ago, and so he's
He's a little winded.
he's
Eh,
he's a little out of condition,
walk it
commission
off.
for the time being. And then I'm not sure why Sonya's not there, other than it's the same reason Liz isn't involved, which is Abe eats magic.
That's his whole shtick. You use a magic attack, Abe eats it and makes himself stronger. All the magic users get sidelined. Relton, spoiler alert, does find a little way to get involved later on, but otherwise, they are all sidelined. This means this doesn't also apply just to magical characters. This applies to anyone using magical weapons. Leo's fabrication blade, Zack's caster pistol, all of that stuff is useless against Abe. It only makes him
It
stronger.
probably should have applied to Mikage as well, but at the time that wasn't really ironed out.
Well, Mikage is more of a empowering ruse ability. It's not an outwardsly offensive ability. But that's where we're gonna be breaking down stuff that we don't really need to go into. But so Abe's raw power of being able to eat magic has essentially made him unstoppable. He can also use that magical energy to kind of be a Dragon Ball Z character. He can create energy barriers. He can shoot energy blasts. He has a healing factor that lets him heal real quickly. He can like jump super high into the air. He is really unstoppable. And when we talk about characters like Adarath beating Tashi or Jeremiah beating Shiori and Hora, Abe at this point has defeated at least 60% of the cast in one fight or another.
Hmm. He is basically a horror movie villain, just being this unstoppable, terrifying force that you can really only hope to run away from, not actually beat. At least until this point.
Yeah, for like the quick itinerary of everything Abe has fought up to this point, it's included eating half of Kalio's arm, kicking Zack through a ship, um, throwing grenades at Gerhardt, fighting off CT, Ephraim, or Emerald Eyes, Rue, all of them, shooting Velnai out of the sky, suplexing Borska. Like, he is burned through. Who's a bear? We never talked about Borska. Yeah, Borska's a bear. He was here. Um,
Sweet boil chick.
he is like if he fights Kaleo in a magic duel, he out magics Kaleo. If he's gonna fight Borska in like a brute force deal, he's stronger than Borska. He you want to be super quick and like do 3,000 cuts with your super speed from Rue. I'm just gonna heal those 3,000 cuts is just as quick as you give them, and then one shot you for the one mistake you make. This character has an answer to everything, not by wit, not by clever, but by sheer raw power.
His one weakness is that he's too good at fighting.
Hey,
Hey, and this is what sets this up is he's also the second artificial celestial we've encountered in the series this far. So at this point, black-blooded beings are still quite rare. The only one we have seen at this stage is Raziel. He's been burning through our cast left, right, and center, and our fight kickstarts with him kidnapping Kaya, of all things.
strange. I wonder where that might be.
Hmm.
Hmm. And as he kidnaps Kaya, the Tri Dragons and Tempest Edge are forced to work together. Remember how we talked about all the way back in fight number 9, where it was a good thing that that fight was never too serious? It's because it pays off here. This is the fact that fight is so gradual and so casual. Not gradual, casual. Is so casual is what makes this later idea of these two factions teaming up work so well. So we got the Tempest Edge and the Tri Dragons all working together to take down one single opponent.
And I just want to say, just for the actual, before we get into the fight itself, I feel like for most of the fights on this list, and just in the RP in general, a lot of them have been more like spontaneous, I guess you'd say. Like, not really any like prior plans, nothing like I guess you could say like really like no preparations. But for this one in particular, our characters like they have to like come together before the fight even begins and like create this whole like super complex plan in order for even stand a chance against Abe. And I think that more than anything just shows how big of a threat he is compared to both past and future foes.
It kind of builds anticipation for the fight too in a way we've never really seen before or since. This is the first fight where like they sit down, they like everyone sits down, they talk about what they've seen, they kind of strategize. Gearhart finds old ruins, Federation bunker that gives them ordnance. They realize they have to put all the magic users on the bench or they're going to make them stronger. They divide them out into teams like shooting team, melee team, artillery team. They have to essentially really get nitty and gritty into this plan.
And yeah, like Spencer said, it really helps bring up this sense of anticipation, giving the vibe that it's all or nothing, and if they fail here, then that's basically it. Anyways, our fight basically begins with Abe having brought Kaya back to with past victims, like the monsters that our crew has counted and all that. And
And this includes a giant snake that Kaya gets lovely to see Abe kill and eat in front of her. Because it's worth noting all the monsters on Truncantis have a little bit of magical energy in them, residual magic energy. So they all serve as really good food for him.
Like a vampire eating rats.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, so our story opens up with Kaya having this kind of showdown with Abe in this really narrow cave, and of course, her knight in shining armor or captain in a red jacket shows up to call out Abe and lure him into the trap they've set.
And this kind of ties into the fight as a whole, but I do like how the plan, helps showcase everyone's specialties, I guess you could say, with, Leo charging into the fray, helping like showcase his recklessness, his willing to risk it all for the sake of his loved ones, and just in general, like a very good character showcase for him, I guess you could say.
No, I agree. I agree. Like every character kind of gets a little moment to shine and play to their strengths in this fight. Like Leto, who won't participate in the fight at all, plays essentially communicator and coach, where like he tells one team to jump in and another team to stand down, and he's relaying intel, which is something only he can do because of his birds. Um, so yeah, no, definitely every character plays very specifically to their strengths in this fight. So luring back into the fight proper is Leo comes to the cave, throws some very witty and excellent insults out. Definitely not shit that was written down when I was tired. And lures Abe out of the cave. As Abe's coming out of the cave, Kaya takes up the fang of the dead lizard, stabs him in the eye because that's lovely. And before retreating with Leo, and Kaya gets to be the one of many people who will land a physical blow on Abe. Velnai ends up picking up with Kaya and takes her safely back to the ship because Velnai fills Kaya in on the plan of explaining why she can't participate in the fight due to the fact her main ability is magic, and that's only going to make the situation worse. And we said Velnai's not a fighter, so using her as kind of like Kaya's escort plays into her scout and lookout role and gives her something meaningful to do during this engagement. Meanwhile, Leo lures Abe, a very angry Abe, into the ambush zone which they have pre-established. And what's in that? What's the first thing in that ambush zone? It is mines. Gearhart has established a giant set of mines underneath the ground. They lure
Where
out.
does he get those wonderful toys?
Well, he just finds them. Comes and pulls out of his knapsack, just like 600 mines, just in a single bag that can only hold six. Gearhart has littered the ground with mines, where out in the immediate area, kind of surrounding this clearing in the forest, all our Tempest Edge crew members and Tri Dragon bounty hunters are lying in wait. Leo lures Abe into the trap after taking a couple heavy hits, and essentially we had our first little clutch in the plan. See, when you write a good plan for storytelling, you have to do two things wrong. Either A, you can't reveal what the plan is to the audience, or B, the plan has to go wrong. Since we're in a role play, you can't exactly do the non-reveal, so the plan has to go wrong. And the first plan is Leo cannot clear the exit zone as Abe grabs him by the collar and tells him he's gonna die.
Fantastic stuff right there.
Coming to his rest
Okay.
is probably one of the interesting dynamics of this fight is Zachariah. Zachariah pulling out the Modric barrel cannon, which we get to see in the first time ever, takes a pot shot at Abe, breaking his grasp and letting Leo clear the blast zone as Gearhart detonates the explosives.
Is that
And yet
what he used? Hold
Pretty
on.
sure.
we are professionals. Don't mind us.
Definitely not going to pause the recording for a minute. Definitely not after a pause break. We reviewed, and there was a small error. It was the elephant gun, not the Modric barrel shell cannon. My apologies. Zach has 500 different weapons. They're bound to get confused.
Yes, although that one thing does come into play.
It does. And this is fun because this is before Leo and Zach have always had some animosity to each other the entirety of the story from literally their very first interaction till present. But
Admittedly, it doesn't reach a fever pitch until later, but
yeah, but this is always feels really nicely because this is where we kind of get the vibe, and Isaac talks about this in chapter 9, where he feels the two would actually make a really good team. And this is probably where what Isaac was thinking about when he had in mind, like Leo lures the enemy out by being loud and obnoxious. Zach is cautious, patient and quiet, and he takes the advantage to land the second hit on Abe, which clears the way for Gearhart to line up the explosions. I don't think Isaac necessarily pictured them working together to fight a pseudo Oro drinker, but
maybe he did.
no plans or has contact with the enemy.
None of this really seems to do much.
Abe just brushes off a gunshot like it's nothing.
And
Like
not
the
only that, but actually tries to counter against some of our crew by basically raining artillery of his own down upon Zack, BB, and a few of the others.
Indeed. Essentially, as soon as they explode the shelves, he survives the initial explosion. Zach, Ephron, Ravebriar, Cowardly Thorn, Gearheart, and why do I feel like I'm missing one? Is it all of them?
I believe so.
Okay, they all essentially like
they're all
from
part of the gun team, right?
yeah, they're all part of the gun team. And the gun team essentially, like if you can imagine, like Abe's in the center of a crater, they're all on like different spots of the edges of the crater, and they all shoot into him, fill him full of lead until he brings up a magical barrier, and then just throws his own artillery barrage at them, knocking every single one of them out of the fight. But that creates the opening for the awesome melee team, which consists of
Boo, Bedalia, I had some others.
it did have some
Oh,
others. Madge,
Yeah, Madge.
there's just the four of them.
Yeah, sorry, I
with
was.
Zack also playing support with his elephant gun too, I believe.
A little bit later, a little bit later.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, so that they charge it, and I love their like combo specifically because it essentially the melee team works really great together because like Borska draws his attention and ends up like dropping the axe on him, but like Abraham like catches it. Like kind of like doing like the classic like katana catch, and it's like they're having this power
Mhm.
struggle. Bedalia appears from the back and like wraps her wires around one of his limbs. Rue comes up from behind and starts like doing a whole bunch of different cut attacks on his legs. And it all just sets
Mhm.
up for this excellent Madge moment where I'm just gonna read this. Moments after Abraham caught Borska's axe in his hand, Madge appeared above him, using the bare shoulder to springboard to flip herself over top of the Ordrigger. Combining her strength with her momentum, Madge swung her arms in a wide arc, bringing down a massive square-headed sledgehammer directly into the center of Abraham's back. It's just great because it really kind of showcases this like I can just like picture like Abe getting his he gets Borska checks him, ruin Bedalia, force him to the ground, and Madge delivers this final blow in this impromptu amazing melee combo play.
Despite all of this, the Oro Drinker still manages to survive, and even though he's actually wounded and kind of losing himself a bit, basically screaming at the top of his lungs how he'll destroy them all and how they're not even worth being eaten. He knocks them back with a powerful magical shockwave.
But that's okay. We still got round three of the plan left.
Yep.
Leto radios into Kotanai, and Kotanai brings the big guns. The Tempest Edge artillery cannons literally rain down a barrage onto Abe. That's gotta kill him, right? Right, guys?
I would believe it.
You would believe wrong. Abe manages to bounce back even from that, launching his own artillery barrage of magic missiles right back at the Tempest Edge. And this is where our lovely Relton comes in with the clutch save, making a
Mhm.
shield of light that essentially like creates like almost a roof above the Tempest Edge. So is like the missiles arc down to get caught on this like golden light barrier, and I can just really imagine like this purple golden energy in this nighttime air over the water, just like shooting lightning and effects everywhere. Like very Dragon Ball, very Dragon Ball.
It's very cool. And also, I just like how, despite basically being benched, Relton still manages to find a way to involve himself and play a bit of an MVP-esque role in helping protect the edge and helping just counter the Ordrinker's attacks.
It does feel like one of his ongoing roles there.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Brandon definitely writes Relton as more of a support fighter than a direct fighter, and this is one of those areas where we really get to see it at play.
Hmm.
However, despite all this, the plan is now for the range team to go for round two, except they're out of commission. Only Zachariah and Efren can even get a couple pot shots off, but they got nothing left. The melee team is still hurting, and Abe is still standing despite all of this.
Now,
But
this is where Modric's cannon actually does come into play. And when the shockwave passes, Zach finally brings it to bear. Now, there's not been a lot of attention paid to this one since Chapter 2, but it was originally a weapon that belonged to the. What was this role
The
originally?
first mate,
Yeah, first mate Modric.
who Raziel
Barrel
stab
shoulder.
stabbed.
Say what?
Raziel gave him a little stab. Check our
That's
honorable
right.
mentions.
One of our few hero deaths up to this point.
rip.
Something that Zechariah carries with him for a long time afterward, both symbolically and actually with this weapon, which he has had to modify for his own usage since he's a very different body type than a dwarf.
Yeah, so essentially we get to this point where Abe is hurting. Like we talked about the fact that Abe is still standing and the stakes are still high, but it should be noted at this point, like his energy is like really depleted. It's written all over in his writing. He's getting frantic. Abe has this kind of menacing dialogue in every point of the chapter where he's like almost poetic in his mania. But at this point, he's just full on, like, just spewing random rage.
Yeah, just shouting "die, die, die, die," doing his best Reaper impression.
Yeah, like I will destroy you all. You're not even worth being eaten. Just really high quality writing.
Scenery as well as Kalio's arm.
Yeah, exactly. Dang it. Yes, exactly. Well, okay. So despite basically 1v fighting everyone, um, and still managing to be alive, not everyone is down for the count, as Leo actually manages to get back up to his feet, and once again manages to do what he does best and be absolutely obnoxious. Just kidding, and draw the Aura Drinker's attention away from finishing off his recently defeated foes.
Yeah, and the little pre-erp to this moment is as he's essentially going and talks to Zach, and it's just Zach who's still on his feet because he hasn't actually taken any much direct damage in this fight yet. Leo goes, "I'm going to create you an opening. You have to finish this." And as we've established before, Leo and Zach don't get along, but when they work together, they make a freaking killer team.
Well, not
Hmm.
only is this notable for that reason, it's also the only time I think Leo doesn't hesitate about unleashing a guy that will kill an enemy.
Well, yeah, no, for sure. This is definitely a moment where like he's like we are like Abe is this close to death. It needs one final push, and he trusts Zach to be the one to give that final push. And so Leo steps up. He grabs Abe's attention, calls him a fake, as I said, really high quality writing on this one, and uses his fabrication shield to absorb Abe's attack and draw his attention, which is actually the energy that he'll later use to make Devour mode to fighting Jeremiah, and creates an opening for Zack.
And so it comes down to a couple of final shots. Now, obviously, Zach can't bring out the caster for this because that would just strengthen the enemy. So he has to rely on basic normal weapons. And I'm
And
really
it's the
again.
it's the Madra cannon,
Yeah.
which comes up to his final line, which if I'm okay with reading that. As Zachariah lowered the cannon to reload another shell, he saw the extent of the damage the ore drinker had taken and finally knew that this was it. Kneeling in the sand as it was, the ore drinker still glared at him, still tried to get its broken feet, and even still tried to summon more power to its fingertips. Zachariah finished loading the weapon, raised it to his shoulder, one more time glanced back to the ore drinker. You've made a lot of noise since yesterday, he said, almost casually as he sighted through the eye rings, remembering who the weapon once belonged to, and now that previous owner met his end at the hands of another black blood master. Zachariah scowled. This one's from Modric. He fired the weapon. At the sound of it, it was the last thing the Orjanker ever heard as the concussive impact of the final shell nearly vaporized it. Whatever was left splattering across the sands and around it. The silence that followed was almost deafening. After 14 different characters in a group fight, it finally ends. And Zachariah puts down the ore drinker.
One of the first in what may be a long line to come. Who can say?
This is just Zach's going to be popping off black blooded people going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely believe that could happen.
Remind him to keep Kyros away from him.
Consider that everybody's warning. Don't let your artificial celestial play with Zach.
That thing that happens in Avatar where they like point at their eyes and then point at everybody else.
So now that we kind of gone through the breakdown of the fight, I think the reason the why that we have to give this fight such a specific breakdown is something unique happens when we talk about group fights in this list and just in general in RPing. They're always messy. They're always because you have just so many different people. They're posting at different rates. They have different ideas, and stuff is just not everything's naturally going to be in one cohesive spot. But for whatever reason, the stars aligned. Lightning was caught in the bottle. Everybody posts at the perfect moment, at the perfect time, doing the perfect thing, and everyone's just in sync for this fight. Every single person who contributes is contributing exactly what they need to, when they need to, where they need to.
Hmm. Like taking into account like the number of people involved in this fight and just just how big it is, I feel like I can say with confidence that this is probably the most smooth running fight in the entire RP.
Yeah, like the reason we can give such an easy play-by-play for it is because it's just that clean to follow. It's not overly long. It's only about 5 pages, though you do have to read every single page because there's so many people fighting. But it just flows. Every
Yeah.
fight hits. Every character gets at least one shot in at Ave out of revenge. But it takes. But everyone's very much feels like this would have been a loss if even one of them was missing.
Pretty much, yeah. I think it's like the only fight in the entire RP where everyone in the chapter is involved in that single fight. Because,
Well, everyone who doesn't use magic.
well, yeah, basically.
Maybe one day we'll get there with them.
Maybe one day. As I said, they are very, very difficult to pull off. Not sure if those stars will ever align a second time, but it is just a genuinely. It feels everything you want. This is anime friends to using the power of friendship to defeat God, or at least using the power of most of their friendship to defeat a pseudo god.
That's
Yeah,
what
and
they
everyone
understand
using
to
like
be a
their,
god at this time.
so we assume at least. Just basically everyone, using their skill sets to their advantage, with Leo, Borska, Madge, all that using their, their like close combat abilities. Leto using his magic, Relton using his more like support aligned abilities, so on and so on. Just a very nice showcase all around, in my opinion.
Yeah, this fight definitely plays to every single character's strengths, and it just feels good. It just feels like a really, really good fight. It feels like a really good finale to the chapter. Action dies down perfectly right after, and we just get a lot of like. There's kind of just a lot of little things set up. We get to see what Zach and Leo would actually look like as a team, and this is kind of almost criminal because like when something is so good, there's also just not a lot to say about it.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, this is a common thing with all these top three fights, but I can't really think of that many things to address. Like, whatever bits of roughness I can't see are like so minor that I really can't even put into words. And honestly, despite being probably one of the earliest fights on this list, it still holds up well today, even in my opinion.
A testament to the folks that were involved.
I think this fight also kind of gets a nice benefit because it feels like an actual accomplishment. Like where a lot of these fights or sometimes feel like events that are happening, this feels like a mountain was climbed. This is should also be noted. This is the only artificial celestial death in the entire story thus far.
So
E-
far.
Every artificial celestial they've run into, they've either lost, barely fended off, or survived near-death encounters. They defeat Abe. They soundly defeat Abe. It's not even like when it's done, it is done. Abe is
He is dead,
paced.
and he is not coming back, as far as
Nope.
we know.
No, he's not coming back. I toyed with the idea of having him survive, but like,
No, no
but
no
I'm pretty
little
sure.
post strip of a piece of him wiggling out of the sand.
no, so me and Dewey, I feel like I can talk about this. We talked actually about Abe initially surviving this conflict because we felt like it would be a great villain to show up later. But it's to the credence of this fight in this moment that it's so complete and it's just so well done. We actually felt we'd be doing a disservice to this moment if we brought him back. This moment was
No,
so
we wouldn't do
good,
that.
we we made the decision not to, and that's why I feel comfortable saying like that just going forward. Like Abe is dead, and it's because of how good this fight is.
Hell yeah.
All right, I think that might be the perfect note to actually go out on then.
Oh yeah. Hopefully one day we'll get to the rest of them.
Yes, if you enjoyed these, let us know so you can continue making us feel guilty about needing to make more. Not sure if
Yes,
we'll do.
thank you for listening to us ramble like idiots for, oh geez, how long is this? 5 hours?
We
Something.
started at 6.
4 hours?
This is we broke these into a couple parts, but yeah, we're probably looking at least another good hour and a half, plus the original stuff we recorded. So yeah, we're probably looking at a good 5 6 hours when this is all done.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see how much people like this. Let us know what you think of the format. If you genuinely preferred the more scripted, succinct storytellings of the first 5 fights, you're probably right too. There's a lot more polish on display there.
A different kind of rough.
But yeah,
Are you telling
so
me that they? Oh, please continue.
no.
Are you
I've
telling
cut
me
you off
that
plenty.
they wouldn't enjoy us discussing how to pronounce Tashi for like a whole minute? Oh,
Pausing to figure out what exactly gun Zachariah used in a super specific scene as all three of us have to scramble to do research.
These details are very important.
I feel this is why like
100%.
professional podcasts have like a fact checker behind the scenes doing all this for them.
Yeah, but who could we trust with that between the three of us?
I
Or
don't know.
anybody else?
Anyways, so that concludes. You officially have your list. For anyone who's upset about wants to know about chapters 8 and 9, don't hold your breath.
Stay tuned. They
You
will be
will.
happening in 1 to
We're looking
15
at
years, give or
we're
take.
looking at Q4 2051.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You'll turn blue if you
Anyways,
hold your breath. Seriously, don't do that.
make sure to smash that like and subscribe button if you did enjoy this. Thank
And
you.
this,
Please
and
check out some of our merch.
before we go, one final message from our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends.
Ah!
Uh,
Good night.
good night or good day.